Okay, so I am back and we're now going to talk about the types of lighteners and how to use them. You have three types of lighteners: oil, cream, and powder. Oil lightener, which is called oil bleach, it's an older school product. I know that Redken has their own oil bleach that released. They released it in this pretty package. Same chemical, different box, different brand. If you go to Sally Beauty Supply, you want to get near identical product, pick up the L'Oreal one. It's the same exact thing. So what makes oil bleach different is oil bleach can be used on the scalp. It's a little bit more gentler. So oil and cream lighteners are considered on the scalp lighteners, which are lighteners that can be used directly on the scalp. You'll mix the lightener and apply it. And typically oil lighteners will have activators. So what activators are boosters, protonators, and accelerators. That's what they call them. They are powered by persulfate salts added to hair color to increase its lightening ability. Activators are used in powdered off the scalp lighteners as well, depending on the brand, and they're going to make the bleach work a lot stronger and more aggressively. So when you're working with activators and you're working with on the scalp oil bleach, you'll have your oil, which is your buffer. You'll mix it with the lightener, and then you'll apply the peroxide, you'll apply your activators. You can add up to 3 activators for an on-the-scalp application and up to 4 for off-the-scalp application. Know that using activators will increase scalp irritation. I know there was an old school myth saying that if you put, Sweet and Low in your bleach or something, some sugar or Splenda in your bleach, it'll, reduce the irritation. That's not true at all. Typically, ammonia is going to irritate. That's just the way it is. It's normal. It's not an allergic reaction. If it's severely burning where they feel like incredibly painful, you have to take it off. They also give you a caution that most powdered lighteners are used exclusively for off-the-scalp applications and special effects such as foil, wrapped highlighting with plastic caps, and hair painting. However, some new powdered hair lighteners can be used directly on the scalp. Refer to the manufacturer's directions. I'm going to challenge this and say that just about every single lightener you can use on the scalp. It's fine. You just have to make sure you're using the right developer. Your developer will determine, can I use this on or off the scalp? And again, always 20 volume. You'll get great results. You can use it on and off the scalp. You'll get where you want to go. Just make sure you apply it correctly. Now, when you're working with a lightener, it's important to remember that when you're doing on the scalp lightening, the scalp will take quickly, and nothing is worse than getting this so light and everything else is so yellow and orangey because you made a wrong application. So know that you can use powder lighteners typically on the scalp. This book was a little outdated when it wrote that. When you're talking about on the scalp lighteners, a lot of them come pre-mixed, so it'll be a cream bottle and it's a cream bleach. Know that oil lighteners are the mildest type, and they're appropriate when only 1 or 2 levels of lift is desired. That is not true. There's actually oil bleaches that will lift the full 7-8 levels of lift. So know that cream lighteners are strong enough for high lift blonding but gentle enough to be used on the scalp because they have the following features and benefits. Again, this is also kind of selling you on this. Conditioning agents give some protection to the hair and scalp. Some of the oils might be a little bit of a buffer on the scalp, but they don't condition your hair like a good conditioner would. Thickeners give more control during application. That is true. And because cream lighteners do not run, drip, or overlap, they are preferred during services. Cream lighteners can be mixed with activators in the form of dry crystals. We don't really see these. Typically, everything is pre-mixed now. So know that when you are working with off-the-scalp lighteners are also called quick lighteners, and they are powdered lighteners that cannot be used directly on the scalp. Powdered lighteners are strong, fast-acting lighteners in a powdered form. Some powders are designed for on-the-scalp double-process blonding. There are others that are designed for off-the-scalp use. Know that they contain persulfate salts for quicker, stronger lightening. They may dry out more quickly than other lighteners, but they do not run and drip. Also know that most powdered lighteners expand and spread out as processing continues, and that's why it's very important when you're working with foils, you don't want to get a bleed mark. So if you have so much lightener packed in that foil and you pack the bleach, is what they call it, it's going to swell and it will actually drop the lightener on the scalp, causing a horrible bleed mark or a rust spot. Know that powdered lighteners, sometimes I'll actually mix them with the cream lightener to reduce some of the swelling. Swelling is very important to consider when you're working with chemical, because if it swells, it's going to affect how you apply the lightener in a foil for highlighting. Also know that you can be allergic to hair bleaches. You don't have to patch test with bleach, but if a client said they had an allergic reaction, take their word for it and find something else. Also know that ammonia-free bleach, oh my god, if you are using ammonia-free bleach, do not use it. I've had one product, I won't give any names, but it was an over-the-counter ammonia-free bleach. People were using it, and I had about 15 color corrections in 1 year back in 2016 because of this product. One of my friends who's a natural level 7 who didn't even need to use a lightener, let his girlfriend practice, he used the lightener, and guess what happened? It turned his hair pink. So all ammonia is there's 3 types of persulfates, if I'm remembering correctly. One of them is ammonium persulfate, there's potassium persulfate, and then I'm blanking in the other one. I think it's sodium persulfate. If you take out the ammonium persulfate, you're left with the potassium persulfate, and then what you get is a gentler, lower working bleach. It doesn't work as good. So we need the ammonia. Ammonia bleach is a lot better, and you get better lift compared to ammonia-free bleach. All ammonia-free bleach is a marketing ploy that's selling you on the product. So know that time factors are very important. Timing is something that's very personal when you're working with a bleach. Also, do not use heat. I have colorists or students that want to be colorists, and they'll say, well, I'm going to buy this expensive dryer. I caught one of them looking at a catalog, and I told them, you actually don't need to buy a high-end dryer, just buy a steamer. Buy a color steamer. It actually makes the color and lightener work a lot better. When it comes to bleach, I don't use heat. I let the bleach happen. The reaction's supposed to happen in a nice, slow manner. Also know that when you wet bleach, people will tell you if you have foil, spray it with water, it stops the action. Spraying bleach with water does not stop the reaction. If anything, it will increase the reaction, because guess what? Most water have some mineral deposits or chlorine or some kind of salt. That salt's going to react with the bleach, and it's a bleaching agent. It'll make it go quicker. In order for bleach to actually stop working, you have to dry the hair out. Drying bleach out is the only thing that stops it, not water. So know that when heat is used with hair lighteners, it softens the hair and makes it more fragile. Excessive heat increases the rate of reaction and swells the hair. Excessive heat can lift and crack the cuticle, break bonds within the cortex, therefore extreme caution must always be used when using heat. Stay safe, don't use it. The old school way is they'd be using these dryers. I had my cosmetology teacher say that they were using these dryers. Back in the day, they'd pull it up, there'd be a little puff of smoke that would come out. That's how strong those chemicals were. They still are strong. Don't accelerate them with the... They used to have the blonde one, which I don't think they're selling anymore. The blonde one wasn't anything new. There was Sebastian that had a similar thing back in the early 2000s. People were using it. Well, it worked a little too well. So don't be sold on marketing. Know the science. Know that the darker the natural color, the more melanin it has. The more melanin it has, the longer it takes to color or lighten. Also know that the thicker the hair is, the longer it will take as well. The amount of time needed to lighten is also determined by the porosity. Higher porous hair will lighten a lot quicker. It's also more prone to damage. The strength of the lightening product affects the speed and amount of lightening. Stronger lighteners produce pale shades in a faster time. So look up on the back of the box. When it says lifts 9 levels, you want to go with that lightener. I use, personally, I use Joico. Joico Blonde Life 9 Plus. I've sworn by it for the longest time. Some people use my identity. I've gotten great results. Know that tone influences the length of time necessary to lighten the natural hair color. The greater the red in the hair, so natural redhead, the more difficult it is to achieve a delicate shade of a pale blonde, and then ash blondes are difficult to achieve because melanin must be diffused significantly. Also know that because bleached hair will be porous, it'll make the ash more difficult because the ash might run too drabby. So always add the ash in with a little bit of violet, or make like a gold violet shade to make more of a cooler toned beige that will be more balancing as opposed to a very harsh ash. So your preliminary, that's the right word. I'm gonna call it the pre-strand test. So your strand test, perform the strand test with the lightener before doing the service. Know how it reacts. If you see any smoking or boiling or any signs the hair is treated with any kind of metal salt or metallic hair color, don't proceed with the service. Know that the patch test must be taken 24 to 48 hours before the service. If the test shows that it's not light enough, just keep processing. People say, I'll just up the developer, I'll take 40 volume, I'll throw it in there and it'll work quicker. Don't do that, just increase the processing time. This will also affect how you're booking your clients, because when you know what's in your client's hair, it will tell you how much time you should book for them and also how much you should charge. And that's why I always tell you, for good marketing skills, always charge your lightening services on a sliding scale. Some clients that are a little bit lighter may not need to have a longer service time for lightening. So, your lightener retouch. Know that new growth is the part of the hair shaft between the scalp and hair that is previously colored. New growth will become obvious as it grows out. Be very careful when if you overlap, because if you overlap with bleach, it'll snap and crack the hair. Also know that when you're working with lightener, always use a cream lightener or an oil bleach, something you can use on the scalp that's gentle. Also know that when you're using procedures that require the use of a towel to check the lightening level, you want to make sure the towel is damp. Think about when you have a spill, you don't use a dry sponge to clean it, you use a damp sponge. Same thing with working with hair. So make sure you can towel blot the hair. Don't rub it vigorously because that will rough up the cuticle and make you get a different result. So when you are working with toners, make sure that you get the appropriate toner. It's important that you don't go choose a shade too light because it won't have enough pigment to tone the hair and you're going to get an off-tone result. If you're too dark, it will be too drab. They provide you literature with how to get the color or training. Again, don't pre-lighten past the yellow stage. Typically, toner is applied at the shampoo bowl. Towel dried hair, you don't want the hair to be sopping wet because the toner won't suck in. Know that because hydrogen peroxide is H2O2, it will diffuse perfectly with water, H2O, better than dry hair. So what happens when the hair is damp, you're able to put that toner on, it can absorb in better on damp hair. Make sure it's not sopping wet, towel blot it, comb it through. And most toners are balanced where they won't take like that. Some of them you can still process it and it may look scary, but you gotta trust the process. I've had someone process the full 30 minutes with the blonde toner and it worked good. If you don't take the toner off, if you take the toner off too soon and don't let it process, you won't get as much length of your toner. People complain, well, my toner faded already. They'll come back in, you're wasting product, and then they're mad because they have to pay to get their hair done again. Do it right the first time. So now we talk about special effects hair coloring. This is a fun part. This is your highlight, lowlights, balayage, ombre, cap technique. Typically, special effects hair coloring is going to refer to any technique that involves partial lightening or coloring. Coloring special effects can be thought of as a pure fashion technique. It is versatile and exciting hair color service. You can make it look natural, you can make it look crazy and fun and fashionable. Know that highlighting involves coloring some of the hair strands lighter than natural hair color to add a variety of lighter shades and the illusion of depth. Subtle highlights do not contrast strongly with the natural color. Light colors cause a light area to advance toward the eye to appear larger and make details more visible. Know that you can highlight with bleach, you can highlight with high lift hair color, with regular hair color, with demi hair color. Well, not really demi. Demi is more of low lighting because it doesn't lift. But if you have a demi color that lifts, you can actually do subtle highlights with that. I've used Redken Shades EQ Cover Plus alkaline demi line with the color, and you can do it as a base bumper because it will lift 1.5 shades. I've done some foils of that, let it lift. It gave a very subtle lift to it, and it was a very nice shade. Know that reverse highlighting, also known as low lighting, is a technique of coloring strands of hair darker than natural color. Contrasting dark areas recede, appear smaller, and make details less visible. Typically, the 90s were all about that really cool checkerboard pattern where it was blonde, dark, blonde, dark, blonde, dark. Some people may want to lighten just one area. You can also use cups. They don't talk about this, but you can pull the cups through, and they're really cool. Put the lightener in there, and that sticks to the head, and you can get a really cool fashion result with that. So with the cap technique, you have different methods of achieving lightener results. There's the cap technique, foil technique, balayage, or freeform, or do a variety. The cap technique, it involves pulling clean, dry strands of hair through a perforated cap with a thin plastic or metal hook, and then combing them to remove tangles. The number of strands pulled through the cap will determine whether the color is going to look natural or fashionable. The more and the thicker the pieces pulled through, the more dramatic the results will be. The thinner and fewer pieces pulled through, the more subtle the look will be. You can get a frosted, sun-kissed result, you can get a fashionable result, and the cap is making a comeback. I've seen people use it with it's like a silicone thing, they'll pull the hair through. I'm assuming that will hurt when you take it off. But you'll put this cap on the client, fasten it on if you want to fasten it on, pull the hair out of the cap, put the lightener on, make sure you're diffusing it correctly, and then put a cap over it to keep it damp. You can do it with hair color, you can do it with high lift hair color. You're going to then shampoo the hair after you rinse it. Shampoo the hair, condition the hair, towel blot the hair, make sure it's damp, comb it, and then just gently pull the cap off. You don't want to ever pull the cap off with lightener on it, that will snap the hair. Know that when you are doing the highlighting cap, it's great for short hair. Also, the foil technique, which is the most common, the cap is a little outdated. This is something that's very 80s, almost 90s too, I guess, 70s for sure. Highlighting, using the hair foils. Foils is something that actually came out in the 70s. We didn't really foil back then, but it was really common to do in the 70s. It became a new thing, it was a new trend, and then it just became more common, but we still had the cap. So it took a while for us to get away from the cap. I'll tell you, my grandma's been, love my grandma to death. She's always been experimenting around with crazy hair techniques, rollers, you name it. She used to wear a wig when wigs were big in the 60s. She would tell me that, you know, she would get the cap done, get the perm done. They used to do both. When the foil technique came out, she didn't have it done to my knowledge, but she said it always looked interesting. And this is what makes it look cool, is that clients will see me doing the cups and I do the cup lightening, they'll go, oh, that looks cool, what's that? Know that the foil technique involves coloring strands by slicing or weaving out sections, placing them on foil or plastic wrap, applying lightener or permanent hair color, and then sealing them off. You can apply permanent hair color to the strands to create a softer, more natural looking highlights. You can do a high lift color, you can do a lighter color, a higher developer, and just tone. So many ways to do the foil technique. Typically know that slicing will produce more of a bolder look, and then weaves will they produce more of a subtle to dramatic look depending on the thickness. If you do thick weaves, it'll be more dramatic. If you do very fine weaves, it'll be baby lights. Very fine weaves are baby lights, they're more subtle. Small weaves are subtle. Medium weaves starting to get a little bit more noticeable, and then large weaves with slicing produces a shattered, dramatic look. So slicing involves taking a narrow 1/8 inch section of hair by making a straight part at the scalp, positioning the hair over the foil, and applying lightener color. In weaving, you select strands out and you do a zigzag method. There's a way to do it, and I'll do it in a different video, or actually, look at my one video. It's a good supplement to this where I show you lightener techniques. If you take your comb, you don't want to be going like this, like you're sewing something. That drives me crazy because you're actually going to pull too much hair and you can't get the foil in there. People will try to force the foil in there and they'll slap bleach on. Don't ever do that. You want the foil to fit in nicely, and just feather the bleach up so you don't get a harsh mark or a bleed mark. So there's different patterns to apply the foil in the hair. There are face frame, half head, 3/4 head, which no one ever does a 3/4 highlights in the salon, and full head foiling patterns. They produce different highlights in different areas of the head. Make sure you check out hair artist Charles Makatoff. He is amazing at doing classes on this. I took his class at the Energizing Summit, Placement with Purpose. It was incredible. So the next technique we're going to talk about is balayage technique. I have a lot to say about that, so I'm going to break here, take your 5-minute break, relax, take some of this in. We come back, I'll be talking about balayage and then toning the hair and dimensionally coloring the hair. And then we'll talk about some gray hair. So we'll get into the 50 shades of gray hair when I get back, hopefully. So see you guys soon.